And so we end with sex and drugs and rock and roll, which seems about right. It shows you the stuff we don't have time to cover. Back in 1973, I remember this vividly, two Yankee pitchers, Fritz Peterson and Mike Ketchich, at spring training announced they were exchanging wives, children and dogs. That was part of the package deal. Here they are. Nice couples. Yes, very nice couples. 1970 stuff. Drugs. Clemens was acquitted for committing perjury in his congressional testimony regarding the use of HGH. That doesn't mean he didn't do it. It just means he was not convicted of committing perjury. There he is, Roger. Yes. And rock and roll. Rock and roll? Sports? Yes. The disco demolition night in mid-July in '79 at Comiskey Park. There was a crate filled with disco records that was blown up on the field. The fans surged onto the field. Near riot ensued. There's the riot. That's the most exciting thing to happen in Chicago that entire year. Certainly the rock and roll. Disco sucks. All right, so be it. I guess the significant turning point with regard to sports and the use of performance-enhancing drugs came with the Mitchell Report, announced with great fanfare in 2007. The unilateral action of Major League Baseball. David, do you need to do something? I am. And everything is working? Good, thanks. I'm recording this for posterity. Anyone know who this is? This thin child of a person playing, I guess he's with the Astros, is that what that is? And there he was at the end. Now, what could possibly have caused that? Lots of therapeutic exercise, one would think. But he wasn't alone. This young child is Roger Clemens, who ends up like that. I guess we all do put on a little weight. But they're not alone. Who is this? This is the young George Mitchell, Senator Mitchell. And here he was during his hearings. Did he take steroids too? I don't know. George Mitchell, very nice man. I don't know if you heard, but he was appointed to be the academic monitor at Penn State, looking for impeccable credentials. He's continued to get more difficult jobs. One, he solved the problems between the Brits and the Irish. Two, far more difficult, he solved baseball's problems. And three, most impossible at all, dealing with Penn State's football problem. The hearings, documents, no subpoena power, lots of players came to testify, and the conclusion was there was widespread illegal use of anabolic steroids and other performance-enhancing substances among Major League Baseball players. But random testing has been effective in decreasing the amount of use. The use of HGH, human growth hormone, however, not being detectable through urine testing, the parties had to negotiate, and they have negotiated, agreements which allow for blood testing for human growth hormone. But the problem was not Barry Bonds. The problem involved many players on many, perhaps most, if not all, the clubs. Each of the 30 clubs had players who had been involved with the substances at some time in their careers. Yes? Yes. Was there anyone who had done drugs elsewhere who then came to the Red Sox? Okay. So we became a farm club for, yes. Oh, no, he was a part owner. Yeah, maybe that had something to do with it. Hard to say. a little bit on the history of performance-enhancing substances. In ancient Greece, athletes would, in order to dope, pulverize the testes of bulls, dogs, and sheep, testosterone, and brew a tea that would improve their performance during the Olympic Games. They were on a strict protein diet to strengthen their muscle mass, combined with various potions, including mushrooms and plant seeds. Did it make a difference? Who knows? Eating meat kind of could make a difference. 19th century users, the cyclists, big sport then and now in Europe. French cyclists used some sort of a caffeine stimulant. A Belgian team used ether-laced sugar cubes. Sprint cyclists tried nitroglycerin. Ugh, it gets worse. A British cyclist died in 1886 after using ephedrine, which was available in 1886. To dull pain, boxers used a combination of alcohol and strychnine, and athletes used psychoactive compounds, alcoholic caffeinated beverages, tobacco, opiates, cannabis, cocoa, cocaine, strychnine to improve their performance. And there was more. A cyclist from South Wales died in 1896 from an overdose of trimethyl, which is a petroleum-based product in a cycling race. And at the first American Olympic Games, meet me in St. Louis, 1904, American marathoner collapsed after ingesting a mixture of strychnine, brandy, and water from a car radiator. His handlers helped him across the finish line to win the event. They don't say very much about what happened to him after that. Anything that could make a difference. And so we think this is just a modern problem. It's not a modern problem. They've been doing it forever. Oh, there he is. He's one of the runners. But what about baseball? This man was a physiologist who did scientific experimentation. Charles Brown Sagard was the head of the American medical establishment and the head of the French American establishment at the same time. And he developed his elixir in 1889, which quickly made the front pages all over the world. This elixir, which was known as the elixir of youth, obviously caught the attention of the sports pages saying, oh, here's the New Haven Register, who writes, well, this elixir of youth could restore vitality and renew their bodily vigor of our baseball nines. Let them take the elixir for youth. We hope the discovery of such a nature can be applied to rejuvenate provincial clubs like New Haven. I was doing research on my book, The Dark Side of the Diamond, which in part deals with alcohol and drug abuse, and I was looking for something that could show that 19th century athletes, in particular baseball, used performance-enhancing drugs of some kind. The synthetic steroids were not developed as of yet, but maybe there was something. And I just came across this business about Brown Sagard. And that would have been enough, including the quote from the New Haven Register, to suggest, well, certainly baseball players would have taken this elixir if it could help them. And then, this was not the headline. This is the headline that hit my prefrontal lobe when I read an excerpt in the small story in the Washington Post, which reported the use of testosterone in an injection by a Major League Baseball player in 1889. Small story. They said where it was. It was in Pittsburgh. Further investigation showed it to be James Francis Pud Galvin, the first Major League Baseball player to accumulate 300 wins, voted into the Hall of Fame, and he used the steroid-like substance to enhance his performance. There's a follow-up story in the Washington Post the next day about what a great day he had at the plate Pitched wonderfully, but he got doubles and triples and suggesting maybe that was the result of this performance-enhancing drug. Who knows? Voted into the Hall of Fame in 1965. In addition to his 300 wins, he was also the first pitcher to accumulate 300 losses, which meant he pitched a lot. And there he is, James Pud Galvin. Here, the latest on drugs. Oh, before we get to the latest on drugs, for a long period of time, when athletes would be found to have used, proved positive, tested positive, there would be some sort of proceeding either in court or before an arbitration panel. And some of the excuses that they raised were as follows. Do you remember Mary Decker Slaney, great women's distance running miler, explained her positive test by saying she had taken a glass of red wine. She was found to have tested positive. Dennis Mitchell, a 1992 sprint gold medalist, said that his testosterone was high because he had made love to his wife 4 times and drunk 6 bottles of beer. Found not guilty. No, good excuse, so keep that in mind. Lenny Paul, a British bobsledder, found positive for an anabolic steroid, explained that he had some pasta bolognese with a meat sauce. And it must have been the cattle that had ingested the steroid, because it certainly wasn't him. A Canadian snowboarder who tested positive for marijuana claimed he was a victim of some passive smoking at a party. He was just there. He inhaled, but he didn't actually take any of the marijuana. On the sand side, Rick DeMont, who was a great swimmer, was barred from the Olympics because he took Marex and Actifed to deal with his allergies, and he had listed them on his statement with the Olympic folks, and they said, no, but still it's performance enhancing, and you're gone. Some of the examples. Here's the latest on drugs. Just this April, a German researcher referred to 100 new performance-enhancing drugs for which no tests yet exist. That's the problem. The drug makers are about 100 ahead of the drug testers. They act like, these are the 100 drugs, they act like EPO, a favorite of cyclists, but they're structurally different, and that means the current EPO tests won't pick them up. But they're testing. 1 in 2 competitors are being tested this fortnight during the London Games, including all medalists. Have you heard of anyone who has been who has forfeited a medal? I haven't, as a result of those tests. So yes.
Speculation around.
Yes. But no positive test has come out. Adam, did you have anything on judo guy? Got it. Okay. And it was the old brownie treatment. Oh, okay. Well, then we will find out more about it. Come on, guys. Good. This Olympics, there's an estimated 400 daily tests. So they're certainly testing. The dark side of the diamond. Bill Veeck, who one of my favorite figures in all of baseball history, owner of various clubs, Cleveland, St. Louis, Browns, general manager. He made it very plain. Wake up the echoes at the Hall of Fame, and you'll find that baseball's immortals were a rowdy and raucous group of men who would climb down from their plaques and go rampaging rampaging through Cooperstown, taking spoils. They were that, as we saw. Yes? Yes. Okay, one EPO, 400 each day. They found one EPO, which suggests to me not that they're not taking performance-enhancing drugs, but they're not catching the new brand of performance-enhancing drugs. Looking at issues of alcohol and drug use in the national pastime tells us something about who we are. Alcohol, ubiquitous in 19th century America. New towns and old, filled with saloons. You'd have 10 people and 12 saloons. Many groceries and later in the century department stores sold alcohol and little more. You could also buy over-the-counter heroin and cocaine. And if you couldn't make it to town, you could go through Montgomery Ward or Sears and they would send it to you. The early game was one where alcohol played an important role. Spectators were not separated from the field of play, and so, lubricated by hard liquor, they would run onto the field and object to an umpire's call. Some would even grab a bat and seek to aid their favorite club by participating in the game when the need arose. The National League, however, was going to stop all this when it was formed in 1876. They banned the sale of alcohol at all baseball grounds and promised a new and very severe penalty for drunkenness. Did not work. Ball players, they continued to drink before and after the games and sometimes during the games. Greatest power hitter of his day, right fielder Ed Delahanty, was often drunk on and off the field, and as a result his behavior was considered pugnacious and obstreperous. There he is. Seems like a nice guy, Ed Delahanty. More, Kurt Welsh, the center fielder for the St. Louis Browns, hit a pint of whiskey in the outfield grass at Sportsman's Park. He would take nips between batters. There he was. And Pete Browning, nicknamed the Gladiator, was normally drunk on and off the field. Nonetheless, he batted .341 for his career, 12th highest all time. Browning, who played right field for Louisville in the American Association, the rival league to the Nationals during the 1880s, said, "I can't hit the ball until I hit the bottle." And he did. And there he is, what a wonderful character. And then there's Steve Howe. Tell me about Steve Howe. What's the story of Steve Howe? Andrew, what's the story of Steve Howe? Did he have a problem? Yes, indeed he did. Okay, it's the arbitration before George Nicolau. He did have a psychiatric disorder, but it showed itself in repeated bouts of use of drugs and alcoholism, and had been terminated 6 times before each time getting reinstated. Once again, he suffers a relapse. And he goes before arbitrator George Nicolau. George, you'll remember from the second and third collusion case, great arbitrator. I'm told he's a bit cranky at hearings, but that's all right. He's well into his upper 80s. He's allowed. What does Nicolau do with regard to Howe's case? And, more importantly, how could you possibly justify it? Jessica, what does he do? He reinstates him. The commissioner had banned him from all of baseball for life. He was a 7-time loser. The Yankees, who had at this point finally inherited Howe, wanted to keep their pitcher. So the general manager, Gene Michael's nickname? Stick Michael, he was then. And Bucky Showalter testified on his behalf. And they just think he's a nice guy with a problem, with a serious problem. Wasn't there just cause for his 7th relapse? I think so too. Anyone agree with Nick Howe? I'll report to George. Yes, Tyler. 7 times is a lot. Why shouldn't that be sufficient, Jessica? Send him, tell his club, his current club, the Yankees, send him for help. It's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is to field the 25 best players they can buy. It's the right thing to do. And that's what an arbitrator should do, is the right thing. At least, well, let's see what happened. During the hearing, there's Fay Vincent, the short-term commissioner at the time. He heard what went on in the hearing. He called in the Yankees management officials and threatened to ban them for life for testifying against the commissioner. They weren't management officials. He told them, it is reported you should have left your conscience and your principles outside the hearing room. Very nice. Word leaked out of this, and the Players Association filed an unfair labor practice charge claiming that Major League Baseball had intimidated witnesses. But it all turned out fine for the union. Nicolau is dealing with a situation where he has no personal experience. How do you deal with Steve Howe and Steve Howe's conditions? So he asked both parties to agree on a neutral medical expert to review the grievance file, and that report came back indicating that in prior instances, Howe's medical people in an action that was supported by Major League Baseball said he needed aftercare. He needed to be tested and tested and tested, which they didn't do. And so, in effect, they set him up for the fall, knowing that it's going to happen. He was ill. Well, yeah, he was a drug addict and an alcoholic. The commissioner knew about the year-round testing prescribed by Dr. Reardon. He did not implement it. That was the basis for the action. I still think that he should have upheld the ban, because ultimately there has to be some responsibility in the player. Nicolau says Howe did not get a fair shot, and emphasizes the fact that this is not simply like a discharge. If he was discharged, in baseball no one's discharged, if he was waived by the Yankees, if they didn't pick up an option, he would become a free agent. He'd be able to go to another club. But by banning him from baseball, no one else could hire him. It is different from a typical discharge case. And Nicolau, along the way, lets us know that there's no real drug problem in Major League Baseball. This is 1992. It would take 5 or 6 or 10 years to realize the extent of the drug problem. Prior to this time, the drug problem in baseball was recreational drugs. It was cocaine and marijuana and maybe early forms of crack that were used in the clubhouse, which was the drug of choice before fried chicken became the drug of choice last September for the Red Sox. Nicolau concludes that there was no just cause. Recreational drugs. The greatest story of use of recreational drugs in baseball was the Pirates pitcher Doc Ellis. And yes, Doc is spelled D-O-C-K. That's his real name. It's not Doc as in Dr. J instead of Julius. He claimed he pitched his no-hitter under the influence of LSD. He could only remember bits and pieces of the game. Whoa! I was psyched. I had a feeling of euphoria. I was zeroed in on the glove, but I didn't hit the glove too much. I remember hitting a couple of batters, and the bases were loaded 2 or 3 times. The ball was small sometimes. The ball was large sometimes. Sometimes I saw the catcher, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I tried to stare the hitter down and throw while I was looking at him. I chewed my gum until it turned to powder. They say I had about 3 or 4 fielding chances. I remember diving out of the way of a ball I thought was a line drive. I jumped, but the ball wasn't hit hard and never reached me. Doc Ellis. There he is, Doc Ellis. And there's the LSD. The old days. Yes, that's what it felt. It felt, yes, he was. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. National Football League drug testing. The National Football League and the National Football League Players Association together have reached an agreement on a drug testing policy. What's the problem in the Williams case? What's wrong with that policy? It was agreed to by the union. Why isn't that sufficient? Ellen, the Williams case? Who are these guys, and why are they suing the National Football League? Okay. There somewhere. I'll let you keep looking at it. Katie, do you have this case? Is there someone who can tell me what the word? Yes. Okay. We have this product called Star Caps. All right. Star Caps are on this banned list.
Well, not when the Williams.
Okay. Not allowed to endorse. Right. And so they took their products and they tested positive, and the rest is history, except they bring suit. What's the basis of the suit? Well, why? Well, that would have been an argument, kind of an arbitration argument. But the players had another hook, which is why this case is here. It is a case involving the supremacy clause, the constitutional supremacy clause, because you have this collective bargaining agreement, which is negotiated under Section 301 National Labor Relations Act, under which collective bargaining is protected by national law and enforced in federal courts. It is supreme. It is uniform, except apparently in Minnesota. What's different about Minnesota? Known hereinafter as DATWA. Yes. And what does, actually it's a pretty good statute. What does DATWA require that the negotiated policy does not require? I mean, does anyone see those differences? Because if there are no differences, again, it's interesting that there's a state law, but it doesn't help us or hurt us. Yes. Close. It really is an informational and process state statute. It's a health and welfare state regulation. It requires that testing be done only in approved laboratories. So it's a process requirement. And when there is a positive test, DATWA requires that the employee receive written notice of the positive test. Again, process. 3, that the player has a right to a confirmatory test. I think that's also in the NFL policy, the confirmatory test. And 4, here's where you were going. You can't fire the employee based on a non-verified positive test, and you have to offer the employee treatment in the first instance. Those are all quite different, or most of them quite different from the NFL policy. So the suit is brought after these guys are found to have have a positive test. The only way the National Football League policy operates is under a premise of strict liability. I don't care what you took, or when you took it, or whether you knew, or whether there was intent or carelessness on your part. If you got it, you're done for. You are automatically suspended. And, of course, the only way it operates is that there's the same drug policy everywhere. It's uniform in every one of the states that has the 32 teams. They're the unrelated Williams players. Here are the players in this dispute. First of all, Jeff Bash, my friend Jeff Bash, General Counsel of the National Football League. There's Jeff. There's Star Caps, the aforementioned Star Caps. There's Star Caps. And Kevin Williams and Pat Williams, football players. So they tested the players and found 5 positives across the country, 2 of whom were the Williams players. They were suspended for 4 games under the policy. The NFL knew that Star Caps contained bumetidine, a banned substance. Why would they not have informed the players? Any ideas? Catherine, any ideas why they wouldn't have told the players? They wanted to catch the druggies who were, why didn't the Williams just take the Star Caps bottle and look at the ingredients and say, let's see, it has cornstarch and agua and they're bumetidine. Bumetidine? No, can't take that. Why didn't they just look at the label? Yes. Oops. Okay. So here, now you're talking about fairness. The National Football League knows what's in Star Caps, knows it's not listed on the label, knows, presumably, that guys are taking this stuff. You can get it at GNC. You probably could have back then. I don't know if they still market it after all this. They probably changed the label, new name, and still sell it. And it's almost as if it was set up as a trap. I think that gives the NFL more credit than it deserves. Also, there's no particular reason why they would want to do that I can think of. They did not let them know. That has no impact on this court's decision. What is this court decision all about? What does the court have to decide with regard to the state statute as opposed to the federal statute? Are these, Andrew? Whether it's preempted by federal law. Preemption, a new topic. And as a policy matter, why would it be good if it was preempted? And so you would be able to have NFL football. Otherwise, what could happen with state statutes? One in Minnesota, one in New Jersey, one in Massachusetts. Except, of course, they play 8 of their games somewhere else. And I assume the law of the venue would apply, and it becomes a checkerboard That's why the NFL tried this case as the end of football as we know it. But that's what the NFL always does. Every one of its cases is the end of football as we know it. You're ready for some football? Well, you got to have us win this case. So Pash, who is designated under the policy as the, quote, arbitrator, he's not an arbitrator. He is certainly a decision maker, but he is not neutral because it's under his regime that this policy was administered. He upholds the suspensions, and they file suit. Oh, yeah, go to the state court. It's removed to federal court, but if you're going to start in the state court. Under DATWA, they said they had certain rights, procedural rights, which were not respected by the National Football League under its policy. The court grants a TRO. They played the 09-10 season. And then the district court rules that the DATWA claims, were not preempted by federal labor law. It's a very sophisticated and difficult argument. Probably just what you didn't want on the last day of class, so I'll do it. The players were disciplined by the league for taking a supplement they did not know and could not realize contained an unlisted. It's a diuretic. What's bad about diuretics? Because even if there was a list of banned substances, it wouldn't include diuretics. What can you do, Michael? What can you do with the diuretic? If you're taking EPO and you take a diuretic, yes. I'm sorry. It's a masking agent, right? And so, as a masking agent, it would be banned as well. The court concludes that there is a role for state law in the regulation of pro sports, and we know that. I'm going to the game this afternoon at Fenway Park. I hope the state health people are checking out the sausage vendors. There can't be baseball without unrestricted sausage vendors. No, sorry. Health and safety laws do apply. And in general, sausage is not at the heart of the national game, whereas performance-enhancing role drugs are. Federal law only preempts state law claims, the court says, that are substantially dependent upon analysis of a collective bargaining agreement. Here, the court concludes, I think correctly, no need to consult the collective bargaining agreement. Just look at what the NFL actually did and compare that with the requirements under the state statute. If the state statute requires X, Y, and Z, see if the NFL did X, Y, and Z. If it didn't, then there was a cause of action under DATWA. The reaction, of course, was furious. Goodell worried about this is going to be the end of pro football competition. Players in Minnesota and any sport, this could affect other sports, are subject to a different standard than the other 49 states. You recognize it's a fairness question for all the athletes. Look who's talking about fairness. They knew this stuff was bad, and they told the players, don't endorse this stuff, but we're not saying anything else about its use, when they knew it was bad. So obviously the Vikings, Twins, Timberwolves, and Wild are much advantaged by all this. We've seen how much better they've been. And there are always variations in state law. The income tax rate in New Jersey, where the Giants play, and mostly live, is 9%. Texas has no personal income tax. That's why, among other reasons, if it was money, Jeremy Lin was a lot better off in Texas for the same amount of money. For every $11 the Giants play Eli, the Cowboys need only to pay Tony Romo $10 to deliver him the same post-tax income. There's differences in state law everywhere. If Plaxico Burress had been accidentally shot himself in the leg somewhere other than New York City, he would not have gone to prison. In fact, in some states, he would have been applauded. Oh, he carries. Cool. This is a complicated country. Could you imagine running a rental car business? Different state laws control insurance, and you have to follow that state regulation in each of the 50 states. Construction companies must comply with different state and local building codes. You will be licensed in a jurisdiction, and that doesn't mean you can practice in some other jurisdiction. Federal labor law strikes a balance to promote national policy, but local police powers remain intact. Is the NFL special? Nope. Sorry. No. Okay. Some predictions about sports. When I first wrote these, 5, 7 years ago, they were beyond people's comprehension. Oh, before I do that, are there any last questions about your papers? Okay. I should tell you, I've already received one paper. I have not read it, but I have received it. So, yes, you can hand it in early, and I'll be around Thursday and Friday to receive any papers that you might want to give me. Some predictions about sports. First, short-range predictions. We're going to see bionic athletes. That will be an issue in the next decade. But if I would have predicted that someone without the bottom of his legs or feet would have run in the Olympics 7 years ago, you would have said, well, are you crazy? And those are just pieces of metal, but there will be other inserts. Already, people are obviously doing the blood doping. Basketball players among others. That's not yet bionic, but while you're in there doing Tommy John surgery, why don't you just install something? That will happen. The internet explosion with live programming worldwide. I just made that up. And then, of course, there it is. It is not everything, except everything connected with the Olympics now, but within the next 3, 4, 5 years, if you want to see an English Premier League game, you'll be able to see it, certainly on computer and likely on your television in any case. This one is more troubling. It hasn't seemed to have worked out. There is no particular reason why professional clubs have to, in whatever sport, have to be connected to cities. They could just as easily be connected to multinational corporations. When the Major League Soccer club was started in this last time in New Jersey, they simply referred to the club as the Red Bulls, obviously the company, Red Bulls. And now they tend to refer to themselves as the New York Red Bulls, even though they play across from Newark in New Jersey. That, I thought, might be the beginning of a move to international, multinational corporations having their own clubs, but we'll see. I guess the National Football League will return to Los Angeles. The only question is, who gets Los Angeles? Or Los Angeles could get 2 teams, for sure. The vacancy makes no business sense at all. And I don't know which league will be the first to put a franchise in Las Vegas. Now, I'm not so sure Las Vegas is the place it was 7 years ago, but it'll come back, and NBA, maybe the NBA, we will see. Oh, and here's another short-range prediction. He's back. Yes, CO is back. The always popular Terrell Owens playing for the Seattle Seahawks. Get your popcorn ready. How long will it take him to be fired? We will see. Longer range. I think I'm still a believer in virtual sports that allow you to play in the games that are going on. You can just about do that on Wii now, but it's a made-up game. But I think you should be able to play, if I own $200 in Tottenham Hotspur, I should be able to play for them. I see no problems with that. Anytime, anywhere. Sport it will be available for our entertainment. And finally, a short quiz. Why, pray tell, do only baseball managers wear uniforms? Could you imagine Doc wearing those shorts and the hoodie man here wearing pants? It's ludicrous, almost as ludicrous as this is. On the left, why? Yes. I've seen Doc out on. Yeah, you could have a designated pitcher changer. Yes. You're absolutely right. Which was the case except for one manager. One manager throughout his entire 50-year career wore a suit and a hat. Honey Mac. Never wore. Once he had, of course, worn a uniform in the 19th century, he was a player. But once he bought the Philadelphia franchise, he was its manager. And I guess if you own the club, you can wear whatever you want. But still, and you're right about the rule. And it's a matter of tradition. But that doesn't explain that array. Why one and not the others? Where does it come from? Why would it? One thing we've done in this course is to try to start with the history and grow from the history to the present, which explains the present time. Yes. It is true that, in fact, at the turn of the 20th century, virtually all managers play. And if you play, you got to wear a uniform because somehow it's more comfortable to wear a uniform, although not quite as fashionable as some. All right. Left-handed pitchers. Why are they called southpaws? Southpaws. You know, I'm not making this up, right? You know, in comes the southpaws. Michael. And so here's the pitcher, and he's facing west, and he throws from the left side, so he is a southpaw. Why are baseball fields oriented this way? And so if it was opposite, you would have to do what is done in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where the Pittsfield Stadium is one of two in the country oriented the other way. And as the sun goes down, they stop the game. They stop the game, kind of like tea in cricket. Stop the game, time out. They have all kinds of things going on the field while the sun goes down. And they decided never to change it. It's a lovely old. And it's not the diamond, it's a square. Okay. And why do baseball players wear stirrup socks? Look at these. I mean, they're absurd. They're fun. And, of course, they wear them. Some will have it down the end. Some will show their socks. Why stirrup socks? Yes, Tom. Okay. They wear them because they're awesome. No, we got to come up with a historical reason. First of all, in the 19th century, it was not unusual, I think it's rather common, that the club's nickname would be based on the color of their socks. Thus the origin of the Cincinnati Red Stockings and the baseball Boston Red Sox. There were the blue Sox, there were the black Sox, there were the green Sox, and that. So the socks were important for that purpose. But that still doesn't explain the stirrup part of it. That's based on the fact that in the 19th century, the dyes that were used to make the colored socks were poisonous. And so the players would all wear sanitary white socks. And then on top of it, they would put the stirrup of the color of the socks, which was the moniker for the team. Do they have to do that today? No. But we are what we are because of what we were. And finally, why is a strikeout indicated by a K on the scoreboard? A K? That's just so common you don't even think about it. You got 14 Ks. Verlander gets 14 Ks. Greg? Knockout? They can use S because it might be confused with a sacrifice or hit the second or soft something, who knows. So Father Chadwick, a name you've heard from the distant past in this course, who created the first scoring system, came up with the K, which from strike, K, strike out. He could have called it a T. Verlander had 14 T's. No, called it a K, has a nice sharp name to it, and it has remained. So we've made it to the finish line. This is the full extent of our NASCAR for this quarter. It's been great fun, and I hope you guys do wonderful things. If any, please write terrific papers because I really relish the thought that they will be published, which would be really nice, and I'd like to give you all the highest honors possible. Life is sports. The rest, just details. Bye and thanks.